Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are taking on, well, a force of nature. We are dissecting a manual on the human mind.
That's a good way to put it.
We have a massive stack of notes here on Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah.
Master Your Mind and Defy the Odds by David Goggins.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you think you know this story because you've seen a viral clip on social media of a guy yelling about carrying boats or running until his feet bleed,
You don't know the half of it.
not even close.
It's remarkably easy to caricature David Goggins as just the intense workout guy or, the yelling guy. But looking at the source material, and
Yeah.
we're covering the introduction through Chapter 5 today,
Right.
this is a much deeper psychological case study.
Right.
This isn't really a book about running. It's a book about metamorphosis.
Exactly. We're talking about a man who went from being a self-described, broken, abused, illiterate, overweight cockroach exterminator
It's an unbelievable list.
to becoming a Navy SEAL, an Army Ranger, a bespoke endurance athlete, basically, in his own words, the hardest man God ever created. But we aren't just telling war stories today. We are looking at how. How do you override the governor in your brain that tells you to stop when you're only at 40% capacity?
And that is the central thesis here. Goggins argues that most of us, even those of us who think we are working hard, are operating at a fraction of our true potential,
He puts a number on it, 40%.
40%. He believes the rest is just left on the table because of fear, comfort, and a lack of what he calls mental callusing.
Okay, so that's our mission today. We're following the warning order Goggins puts at the very start of the book. We want to understand how to unshackle the mind, ditch the victim mentality, and build an unbreakable foundation.
And to do that, you have to go back, way back.
We have to. To understand the callus, you first have to understand the wound. And Goggins' wound, man, it starts deeply. We're going back to 1981 Buffalo, New York, a place called Paradise Road.
This setting is just so crucial here because of the sheer contrast it provides.
It's cinematic.
It is. Goggins describes his childhood home on Paradise Road as the American dream personified. It was this pristine white house, manicured lawn,
A Rolls Royce in the garage.
a Rolls-Royce in the garage. On the surface, the Goggins family looked like the absolute tip of the spear of the black upper middle class in that area. They looked perfect.
But as he says in the text, glossy surfaces reflect much more than they reveal. Inside that picture-perfect house, it was absolute hell. And the devil in this story is his father, Trunnis Goggins.
Trunnis was a businessman, a hustler in every sense of the word. He owned a roller skating rink called Skateland and a bar that was located right above it.
A local pillar of the community, from the outside looking in.
To some, maybe. But at home, he was a tyrant. And we really need to be clear about what that means. This wasn't just a strict father situation.
No, this is not about getting grounded for bad grades.
Not at all. Trunnis viewed his family, his wife Jackie and his sons David and Trunnis Jr., as free labor and as punching bags. He controlled every single aspect of their lives with just raw violence.
Yeah, let's just paint the picture of 6-year-old David's life for a second. Most 6-year-olds are worrying about what? Saturday morning cartoons? Building with Legos?
Right.
David is working the night shift at Skateland. He's not playing. He's working. He's organizing dirty rental skates, dealing with the smell of aerosol spray from sanitizing shoes, a smell that he says just lived in his nostrils permanently.
And he's working until midnight, sometimes later on a school night. And then, of course, he's falling asleep in first grade because he's completely exhausted.
And his mother, Jackie, she's slaving away too. He describes her as a booze mule, running drinks up to the bar, working the cash register. And at the end of the night, Trunnis takes all the money, all of it.
And it wasn't just the labor. It was the unpredictable, brutal nature of the terror. The source material details an incident that,
Well, it really sets the stage for the trauma Goggins carried for decades.
it's hard to read.
It is. He describes a night where his mother, Jackie, is beaten by Trunnis. And he isn't using his hands, he's beating her with a belt. But he's using the buckle end.
He's using the buckle end. It's a weapon.
And David, at 6 years old, he tries to intervene. I mean, imagine the courage that takes, and just the sheer desperation. He jumps on his dad's back to twinkle and stop him.
And Trunnis just tosses him off like a rag doll and then beats him too.
Yeah. The quote that really stuck with me from the book, Trunnis looks at him after the beating, with David lying there battered, and says,
"You're raising a gangster."
"You're raising a gangster like it's his mother's fault."
That environment, Goggins calls it a cyclone of terror. It creates what psychologists call a jacked up mind. You have to understand, when a child lives in constant fear of the person who is supposed to protect them, It literally rewires the brain architecture.
It's a betrayal of the most fundamental trust.
Completely. It puts them in a permanent state of fight or flight. You're
Yeah.
constantly scanning for threats, which means you cannot focus on learning or playing or just growing.
So eventually they do get out. The escape plan is straight out of a thriller movie.
It is. His mom, Jackie, basically has to fake compliance to get a credit card, which Trennis usually forbade. She had to pretend she was happy, that everything was fine, just to get that small bit of freedom.
And then they bolt. They wait until Trennis is busy at the skating rink, and they just run. They end up in Brazil, Indiana.
And you'd think, okay, great, they escaped the villain, roll credits, happy ending.
But that's rarely how trauma works, is it? And it's certainly not how it works in this story.
No. They escaped the physical presence of Trennis, but they basically traded a rich tyrant for abject poverty and a totally different kind of hostility.
They were living in a place that cost $7 a month for rent.
$7. They were counting pennies to buy gas, using change they found on the ground.
And just as they started to find some stability, they meet a man named Wilmuth, a kind stepfather figure. Things are looking up.
And tragedy strikes again.
This part broke my heart reading it. Wilmuth was the first positive male role model David had ever had. He actually treated them with respect. He was the guy who was going to make it all okay.
And then he's murdered.
Yeah. Shot 5 times in his own garage, right before he was supposed to take David to go skating.
And David is just a kid. And he's standing there looking at the crime scene tape, seeing the aftermath of violence. Once again, it's unimaginable.
It creates this compounding effect. Goggins talks about toxic stress. He references pediatricians and researchers who believe that severe, prolonged stress in childhood can be more damaging than infectious diseases like polio.
It literally limits memory and language development. The brain is so busy surviving, so focused on threat detection, that it shuts down the higher-level cognitive centers needed for learning.
Which explains so much about his struggles in school. It wasn't that he was dumb, he just couldn't learn.
His brain wasn't wired for it at that point.
And you see the physical manifestations of this stress. He starts developing a severe stutter.
His hair was falling out in clumps. His skin started turning white with splotches, a condition called vitiligo, but he notes it was massively exacerbated by the stress.
He's failing every class. And he admits in the book he just started cheating to survive. He couldn't retain information because his brain was constantly scanning for threats. It was always on high alert.
And we have to talk about what those other threats were. Because when they moved to rural Indiana in the 80s, the threats were very real and they were very racial.
Yeah, he was often the only black kid in his class, sometimes the only black kid in the entire town.
And the stories he shares are just brutal.
There's one where he's just walking down a road and some guys in a pickup truck pull a gun on him. Just for fun.
Another time, he's at a Pizza Hut with a girl he likes,
Yeah.
a first date, and her father storms in and calls him a racial slur right to his face in front of everyone.
The humiliation.
The terror.
And maybe the most chilling specific incident was the one with the Spanish workbook.
Oh, man.
He opens his book in class, just trying to learn, and someone has drawn a picture of him in a noose with a death threat. Niger, we're going to kill you, misspelled, but the intent was crystal clear. And this is where we see the victim mentality that he talks about so much really take root. Goggins is very open about this. He admits he didn't handle this with grace initially.
Well, how could you? He was a kid.
He fell into hate. He fell into rage. He started dressing like a thug, sagging his pants, trying to scare people before they could scare him. He wanted to be the threat for once.
It's a classic defense mechanism. He was reacting to the world, letting the world dictate his emotions and his identity. He had no foundation, no sense of self other than victim. He was essentially a leaf blowing in a very, very violent wind.
Yeah.
He had completely externalized his power.
So we fast forward. He's a junior, maybe a senior in high school. He's flunking everything. He reads at a 4th grade level. He has absolutely no future. And then he gets the letter.
The letter from the school administration. And it states, in no uncertain terms, that he is not going to graduate.
And his mother's reaction here is pivotal, I think. She doesn't yell. She doesn't lecture him.
She's too broken by her own grief over Wilmuth and her own trauma to parent him in that moment. She's checked out.
Yeah.
She just hands him the letter and walks away.
That silence, that's the nobody is coming to save you moment, isn't it?
That's it.
It forces him into the bathroom. And this is the scene that, for me, defines the entire first half of the book. He wipes the steam off the mirror after a shower.
And he doesn't look at himself and say, you're good enough, you're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you.
No, it is the anti-affirmation. He gets raw. He gets real. He looks himself in the eye and he says,
You are an idiot. You stand for nothing. You are a joke.
brutal.
He shaves his head. He shaves his face. He decides he has to start from scratch, build a new person. This is the birth of what he calls the accountability mirror.
Let's really unpack this technique because it's actionable, and it's the very first step in his transformation. It's not about self-loathing, not really. It's about objective truth.
Goggins argues that we are all way too soft on ourselves. We protect our fragile egos with all these little excuses and lies. The accountability mirror is about stripping all of that away.
So he starts using Post-it notes. But they aren't for these big, vague goals like be successful or be an astronaut.
No, they're granular. They are tactical. Make your bed, pull up your pants, shave your head every morning. Tiny, controllable actions.
The philosophy behind it is that if you can't manage the small disciplines, you will never be able to manage the large ones.
Exactly. He realized that if he wanted to change his entire life's trajectory, he had to own his deficits, 100%. He was dumb, and he admitted he was uneducated. He had to be the one to fix it. He couldn't blame Trunnis for his grades anymore. He had to own the solution.
And the way he fixes his learning disability it's just fascinating. He decides he wants to join the Air Force pararescue. But to do that, he has to pass the ASVAB, the military aptitude test.
And he can barely read the study guide.
He can't. He opens it up, and it's like a foreign language to him.
So he invents this brute force method of learning. He realizes he can't learn by just skimming or reading like other people. He has to memorize.
He literally writes out the textbooks, page by page, over and over again in these spiral notebooks until the information is just burned into his brain.
He says, knowledge stuck to the mirror of my mind. He isn't claiming to be a genius. He is claiming, and this is a core theme, that he can outwork anyone. If it takes you 1 hour to learn something, he will spend 10.
He decides that the pen is his weapon now. And he does it. He takes the test once, fails, takes it again, fails. The third time, he passes.
It just reinforces this major theme in his entire philosophy. Talent is not required.
Yeah.
Resilience and just sheer obsession can outperform talent any day of the week. But, as we see in the next part of the story, getting in is not the same thing as staying in.
Right. So he gets into the Air Force. He's in pararescue training, which is elite, really tough stuff. And he quits.
Well, technically, he gets a medical deferral. But Goggins is brutally honest in the book. He calls it what it was. It was a quit.
He took the easy way out.
He did. They found out he had the sickle cell trait. It's a genetic trait, not the full-blown disease, but it can be dangerous under extreme physical stress, like, say, elite military training.
So the doctors gave him a choice. Stay and fight through the diagnosis, work with the medical staff, or go. And he took the out.
But the real reason wasn't sickle cell. It was the water. He's terrified of the water.
Yeah, he talks about water confidence. He describes the sheer panic of being negatively buoyant. He just sinks like a stone because of his bone density and muscle mass.
And that bobbing evolution where you have to bounce off the bottom of the pool with your hands tied behind your back to get a breath of air.
Yeah.
He was mentally broken by the fear of drowning. He let the fear win that day.
So he leaves. He finishes his service in a regular Air Force unit, gets out, and life just spirals.
It really does.
He ends up working for Ecolab as an exterminator, and this is the visual that it really stuck with me. David Goggins, 300 pounds, spraying for cockroaches in the middle of the night for $11 an hour.
It's the descent. He's self-medicating with food.
Yeah.
His staple breakfast, and this is straight from the source, was a box of mini cinnamon rolls.
A whole box.
The whole box. 6 eggs, a pound of bacon, and a bowl of Fruity Pebbles, all washed down with a chocolate shake.
He was destroying himself. He says he was just trying to numb the feeling of being a failure.
And the rock bottom moment isn't some huge tragedy like Wilmoth's death. It's a moment of quiet, personal disgust. He's at a restaurant, spraying a massive nesting column of cockroaches behind a wall. And he just realizes...
I'm living like a cockroach.
Exactly. This is my life. He goes home that night, turns on the TV, and sees a Discovery Channel documentary on Navy SEALs, Class 224.
This is such a pivotal moment of observation. He sees these men suffering. He sees them covered in mud, freezing, breaking, carrying logs in boats.
And instead of being repulsed by it, he's captivated.
Completely. He sees pride, dignity, and excellence. He realizes that suffering is the crucible he needs to burn off all the fat and the fear and the self-pity. He wants that feeling of having survived something that was supposed to be impossible.
So he picks up the phone, He starts calling recruiters.
And he gets laughed at. I mean, can you imagine? A 300-pound guy walks into a recruitment office and says he wants to be a Navy SEAL.
They literally hang up on him. He calls dozens of them. They all say, no, you're too old, you're too heavy, it's impossible.
But he finds one recruiter, a guy named Shell Joe, who takes a chance on him, but there's a catch.
A massive catch.
Okay.
He is 297 pounds. The maximum weight for his height to enter the BUDS program is 191 pounds.
Okay, so that's over 100 pounds.
It's 106 pounds. And because of age limits and some program cuts that were happening, he has less than 3 months to lose it.
This is what he calls the impossible task. It sounds physically impossible. Losing a pound a day is hard. Losing over a pound a day for 3 months straight is insane.
It requires a calorie deficit and an energy output that really borders on dangerous. But this is where that obsessed mindset kicks in. He knew that moderation wasn't going to save him. He needed extremity.
His routine is just mind-boggling. He wakes up at 4:30 a.m., eats a single banana, rides a stationary bike for 2 hours.
Then he drives to the local high school pool, swims for 2 hours, then goes to the gym for high-rep circuit training, then back on the bike for another few hours.
Dinner is a single chicken breast and maybe some rice. That's it. Every single day.
And he's listening to the Rocky soundtrack on a loop, the song Going the Distance. He's literally brainwashing himself with motivation.
But the key takeaway here isn't just the workout itself, it's the accountability to the self that he built into it.
Yes.
He mentions that if he missed a pull-up, say he aimed for 100 and only did 99, he wouldn't just do one more to make it even. He would restart the entire set from 0.
That is the difference. Most people would say, 99, that's close enough. Goggins believed that cutting corners, even 1%, was what got him to 300 pounds in the first place.
He was punishing the part of his brain that wanted to be comfortable. He was teaching his brain that the easy way out actually leads to more pain in the long run.
And he does it. He loses 106 pounds in under 3 months. He passes the ASV again, barely, but he passes, and he ships out to BUDS, basic underwater demolition seal training.
Which brings us to Hell Week. Now, for anyone listening who doesn't know, BUDS is widely considered the hardest military training in the world. And Hell Week is the absolute peak of that mountain.
It's 130 hours of continuous training, almost no sleep, constant exposure to freezing cold water, running for miles with heavy boats on your head.
It's designed to break you. Physically, yes, but mostly it's a mental game. The instructors are looking for the weak link. They want to see who will ring that brass bell and quit. They are applying maximum pressure to see where the cracks in your soul are.
And there's one instructor in his class, a guy they call Psycho Pete, who is determined to break Goggins. But this is where Goggins introduces the concept of taking souls. This might be my favorite psychological tactic in the whole book.
It's brilliant.
It's absolutely brilliant. Taking souls is about flipping the power dynamic.
Yeah.
In a situation where you are being oppressed or tortured, like in Hell Week, the instructors hold all the cards. They have the power. You are the victim.
Right.
Goggins decided to change that narrative.
Yeah.
He realized that the instructors were feeding off the recruits' misery. The more you groan, the more you suffer visibly, the stronger they feel.
So he tells the story of Boat Crew 2. This is basically a group of misfits. You've got Goggins, you've got a guy they call Freak Brown, and you've got this quiet guy from Texas named Chris Kyle.
Who, by the way, goes on to become the American Sniper. But at this moment, they are just a bunch of recruits getting absolutely crushed. They're the worst boat crew.
They're carrying a heavy rubber boat on their heads. They're broken. They're cold. Psycho Pete is screaming at them, telling them they're weak, trying to induce them to quit.
And Goggins has this epiphany. He realizes that Psycho Pete wants to see them crumble. That gives Pete his power.
So what does he do? He rallies the crew. He tells them, we are going to take this guy's soul. And instead of dragging the boat in the sand, they lift it high. They press it over their heads.
And they start chanting, "You can't hurt Boat Crew 2."
Think about the psychology of that. The instructor expects broken men. He expects groaning and crying. Instead, he gets organized defiance. He gets energy.
It confuses him.
Yeah.
It frustrates him. Goggins argues that by refusing to suffer visibly, you take the instructor's power away. You start to occupy space in their head. You own them.
It's pure mental warfare. There's another moment where they are in the freezing ocean, what they call surf torture. Everyone is shaking, miserable, huddled in the survival position.
And Goggins starts singing.
He starts singing Adagio for Strings, the really sad, dramatic theme song from the movie Platoon.
It's completely absurd. And that's the whole point. Finding humor in the middle of hell, it signals to your own brain, and more importantly to your tormentor, that you are not broken. You're operating on a different frequency.
Yeah.
You're untouchable because you have decided to enjoy the pain.
But the body does have limits. Goggins survives Hell Week, which is a miracle in itself given where he started, but he comes out of it with a fractured kneecap, a stress fracture.
And this leads to this core concept of the armored mind. He survived, but he's badly injured, and he has to face the final test of that phase, the knot tying test, underwater.
The scene is claustrophobic just reading it. He's underwater, holding his breath, trying to tie 5 different knots on a rig at the bottom of the pool.
And Psycho Pete is his grader.
Mm.
And Pete hates him. Pete is splashing water in his face when he comes up for air, trying to panic him, trying to make him fail.
And Goggins has a broken knee. He can't tread water properly to stay afloat between knots. The pain is excruciating. The urge to quit is screaming at him.
This is where he taps into the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, but he does it intentionally. Goggins describes a flip switching in his brain. He stops looking at Pete as a tormentor and starts seeing him as a training tool.
Right.
He realizes that his entire life, the beatings from Trinus, the racism in Indiana, the poverty, the fear of water, had calloused his mind for this exact moment.
The callus metaphor is so powerful. If you lift weights, your hands get callous. They get tough. The skin hardens to protect you. Goggins says your mind is exactly the same.
But, and here's the important nuance, if you view yourself as a victim, that callus becomes resentment. And resentment is brittle, it makes you bitter. But if you view life as a training ground, the callus becomes armor.
Resentment is brittle, armor is strong. That's good.
He uses that armor to stay underwater, to ignore the blinding pain in his knee. He enters what he calls a bear crawl state around the bottom of the pool, moving faster on one leg than the healthy guys were with 2. He passes the test purely on mental grit.
But, and there's always a but with Goggins, isn't there?
Always.
He passes the test, but the injury is too severe to hide any longer. The medical staff finds the fracture, and they roll him back.
This is the crushing blow. He doesn't get kicked out, but he has to start over. Day 1, week 1. He has to do all of it again. He has to do Hell Week again.
And actually, because of another medical issue, he got pneumonia in a previous attempt. He ends up doing Hell Week 3 times in 1 year.
Which is unheard of.
But this time, when he gets rolled back for the knee, he's at his absolute lowest. And to make matters worse, his wife gets pregnant right at this moment. So he has no job, no money, and he's physically broken, sitting on his mother's couch.
This is what he calls the couch moment. It's the final reckoning. He realizes that despite all the physical transformation, despite the taking souls mindset, his foundation was still cracked.
Why?
Because he was still running from his past. He was still lying about Trinus. He was still hiding the fact that he was an abused kid from Buffalo. He never told anyone in the teams his real story.
So he had built this superhero physique on top of a broken child.
Precisely. And the resolution he comes to on that couch is profound. He decides he has to accept Trinus Goggins. Not forgive him in a kumbaya sense, but accept that the abuse is part of his DNA. It's part of his story.
He uses this analogy of the bad hand in poker.
Yeah. He says, okay, I was dealt a bad hand. I got the pair of 2s. Everyone else might have aces. But if I can run this race with this 50-pound rucksack of trauma on my back and still compete, imagine how strong I actually am.
He reframes the trauma. It's not a disadvantage anymore. It's weight training. It's the resistance that made him strong in the first place.
He decides to use the bad hand as fuel. If he can succeed in spite of all this, he becomes unstoppable. That's when he goes back.
And he goes back. He graduates. He becomes the only member of the U.S. Armed Forces to complete SEAL training, U.S. Army Ranger School, and Air Force Tactical Air Controller training. But the book really emphasizes that the graduation wasn't the end. It was just the proof of concept.
It was the proof that the 40% rule is real, that we all stop when we feel that first pang of pain, but that pain is just a signal that we are beginning to tap into our true reserves.
So let's bring this all back to the listener, because, you know, most of us aren't trying to become Navy SEALs. We're just trying to get a promotion or lose 20 pounds or just get through a tough week. What are the tactical takeaways here?
I think first and foremost is the accountability mirror. You have to get real with yourself. Stop using kind language if the reality is harsh. If you are procrastinating, call yourself lazy on a Post-it note. If you are failing, admit you aren't working hard enough. You cannot fix what you will not acknowledge.
Write your insecurities down and stare at them until you have no choice but to fix them.
Exactly. Second is the impossible task. Goggins didn't just decide to be healthy. He set a goal that was so big it scared him, losing 106 pounds in less than 3 months. You need a goal that forces you to completely change your lifestyle, not just your weekend plans. You need a goal that requires obsession.
Number 3, taking souls. And this applies to the office just as much as the battlefield, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you have a boss who doubts you
Right.
or a competitor who thinks they have you beat, don't just try to survive. Excel so undeniably that it confuses them. Work so hard and become so good that you occupy their mental space. Excellence is the ultimate form of psychological warfare.
And finally, building the calloused mind. Stop expecting life to be fair or comfortable. It's not. When things go wrong, when you get the flat tire or the deal falls through, don't say, why me? Say, Roger that.
Roger that. It's just another rep for your mind. It's more armor. It connects right back to Goggins' warning order at the start of the book. The mission isn't to feel good. The mission is to be better, to unchain the mind.
I love that. It's not about happiness, it's about capability.
Right. Happiness might be a byproduct of capability, but capability has to be the goal.
So here's our challenge to you, the learner. Goggins has challenges at the end of every chapter, but we're going to distill them into 3 steps for today. 1, go look in the mirror tonight and be brutally honest. What is your bad hand? What are your excuses? Write them down on a Post-it. Stick it on the mirror. Own it.
2, do something that sucks today. It doesn't have to be running 100 miles. It can be doing the dishes immediately instead of letting them sit. It can be a 30-second cold shower. It could be having that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Callous the mind, one small layer at a time.
And step 3 is the inventory. Take stock of where you are stopping. Where is your 40% wall? Is it when you get bored? Is it when you get tired? Is it when you get frustrated? Identify the wall so you know what you have to smash through. And I'll leave you with this final thought to mull over. Goggins isn't asking you to be him. He is asking you to answer the question, what if? What if he's right? What if you really are only operating at 40% of your potential? What would your life look like if you just accessed another 10%? The only way to find out is to embrace the suck.
It's about becoming the hero of your own story, not the victim of your circumstances.
Stay hard and keep diving deep. We'll see you on the next one.